If you haven't seen this movie and you're still listening to this episode, it's got to be because of the family dynamics, so I don't know what you expected here. This podcast may contain explicit language. The only difference between me and that old preacher is that he worked for God and I am God. Men of Honor is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique rating style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
And tonight, for our 285th episode, we discuss Men of Honor, a certain one for her, if you will, from the year 2000, celebrating its 25th anniversary. Directed by George Tillman Jr. Please raise your hand if you have heard of him before tonight. No? Nobody? Okay. Written by Scott Marshall Smith. Cinematography by Anthony B. Richmond. Music by Mark Isham. Editing by John Carter and Dirk Westervelt. Starring Robert De Niro as Master Chief Leslie Billy Sunday. Cuba Gooding Jr. as Boatswain Mate. Second Class Carl Brashear. Chris Warren Jr. as the young Carl. Charlize Theron as Gwen Sunday. Anjanae Ellis as Joe Brashear, Hal Holbrook as Camp Commanding Officer Mr. Pappy, Captain something. Michael Rappaport as Gunner's Mate Snowhill, Powers Booth as Captain Pullman, David Keith as Captain Hartigan, Holt McCallany as Machinist Mate First Class Dylan Rourke. Background for the movie: Men of Honor was released on November 10th, 2000. On a reported budget of $32 million, Men of Honor grossed roughly $82.3 million to finish number 56 at the worldwide box office for 2000. Good Lord, if we had that many movies that finished above $82 million in a year, holy cats. The reviews at the time were at best mixed to mildly positive, but most saw the film as formulaic or a fill-in-the-blank based on a true story fare. Men of Honor currently holds a 41% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 56 score on Metacritic, and a 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Now, of course, we're not going to do this alone. We bring in our returning celebrity guest, my mother, making her now 17th appearance on the show to date, a record for this program, weighing in at a svelte 121 pounds. Please welcome back Christine Duncan. I took a guess at the weight. I figured that was at least a good compromise.
Well, I can give you a quarter.
A quarter? That goes so far in today's economy.
I know. Maybe $1.
A whole $1.
An ice cream sundae?
Sure. Okay. So when I said this is definitely a one for her, I was meaning, of course, you. So, why are we here tonight, Mom? Why does this movie resonate with you so much?
Well, I think there's always something about a story of an underdog. A real hero, not like a superhero, which I don't appreciate. So, someone who faces odds I can't imagine and breaks barriers through things that for me are mind-blowing. I can't even imagine. So I think that the story of Carl Brashear he's that kind of hero, that kind of a man, the kind who did the right thing, fought the right fights, and won. So to me, this story is amazing, and I'm really glad that he did, and I'm really glad that somebody shared his story.
Dad, why do you think this movie resonates with Mom so much?
Because it's a very linear story that she can follow very closely. She likes stories about people and as opposed to subjects. And she has a thing about really liking underdog stories.
I have no issues with that statement. However, I will add a couple of things. She's a fan of microhistory, so individual stories, and usually character studies are a little bit easier to grapple with. She likes these based on a true story kind of movies, and usually, and I say this with all due respect, she loves a good racial history movie. Hidden Figures, The Help. What else can I throw in here? I mean, there's been enough of these like kind of Disney based on a true story movies that she's really enjoyed for years and keeps coming back to.
I'm not sure that any of those are compliments.
You are what you are, you like what you like. None of it is shaming,
No.
but for me, I like a lot of different things than this movie. So this really is one that, if not for you pushing for it, would never have come up on the show.
I'm glad we're doing it. So I still think it's a story that needs to be told.
Okay. So the biopic has, let's say, come under scrutiny in the last few years, with the exception of Oppenheimer, which we did reveal last week is on the CLP list, that both you and I included it on our final official list, Dad.
Yes.
What about a biopic seems to resonate more with you than it does with me?
I'm a historian, so I like historical stories that draw out elements that I was not aware of about a historical figure or the circumstances or events leading up to that person's life and how it impacted and such. So it's just a pure issue of being historically based.
I guess my issue with biopics is that they all feel very similar to each other, whether that's Elvis or Bohemian Rhapsody or Napoleon or whatever else. It's like a Wikipedia entry into somebody's life that I could probably get just about as much information off of said Wikipedia page as I could from learning from the movie. And frankly, you watch most movies with your phone in hand looking up this stuff to verify whether it's actually a part of the movie or it's something they made up or anything else. And
True.
so to me, that I find kind of boring. It's
Okay.
not a slice of life or why this person mattered. And I think that's the part about a biopic that I find to be so lacking. I would have much less of a problem if they were trying to say why this person mattered or what their life changed or what their significance was to the larger picture of things and why we're talking about this person than just giving me a small biography of how they lived. To me, that's not particularly interesting. I want the macro thematic elements to it. And that's usually what divides me from both of you. We all have some way of looking at history, but mine is much more on a macro level. Both of yours is much more approaching the micro.
Okay.
So, what is our relationship to this film? We all have the same one. Let's see if we all remember it the same.
So we went to the movie theater to see this when it first came out. And I know that I was inspired by the film. I loved the soundtrack even. Today while I was preparing, I went back and I was listening to the soundtrack. I've never forgotten that feeling. I walked out of the theater feeling inspired and that maybe there was some good in the world again, or could be, that there were still people out there willing to change opinions and break down walls that have been there for centuries that shouldn't be there. And I don't know, I loved the music. I thought it fit really well with the film. And yeah, so I just remember being in the theater watching it.
Yes, and we sat. I'm trying to remember if everybody went. Sarah would have been too young, wouldn't she have been?
I did not see this in the theater.
Okay.
None of us did. In my recollection, we watched this at home on a rental.
No, Mom and I went and saw it in the theater. I know that much. That's why I think I seen it twice.
I will concede the point that you both think you did. I have no way of truly verifying whether you did or not. I remember watching this for the first time, and I swear it was everybody's first time, on a rental at home in the small den in the old house before we moved to Port Edwards. I don't know, back 20, 25 years ago.
First of all, we've been in this house almost that long.
We moved there in the fall of 03. This was the year 2000.
Okay, but your dad and I did see it in the theater. I think we may have done a date night.
Yeah, this probably was one of those nights where Sarah's calling us and saying Tom's is trying to kill her.
Trying to kill her.
She would have been 4 years old.
Yes, she knew how to use the phone.
I didn't get put in charge as the babysitter until the summer of 04.
Well, because we knew better.
Excuse me, the summer of 03, because it's right before we moved. And that was when I got offered my PlayStation 2.
Yes.
That was my reward for taking care of them all summer. I don't know. Yes. If you haven't seen this movie and you're still listening to this episode, it's got to be because of the family dynamics, so I don't know what you expected here. So, Dad, you have our plot summary ready for us.
Wow, we're really jumping into this, aren't we? Men of Honor is an inspiring drama based on the true story of Carl Brashear, the first African-American master diver in the United States Navy. Played by Cuba Gooding Jr., Brashear faces racism, physical hardship, and personal sacrifice as he fights to achieve his dream. His toughest challenge comes from his commanding officer, Master Chief Billy Sunday, played by Robert De Niro, a tough and skeptical veteran diver. Over time, the two men develop a mutual respect. Men of Honor is a story about courage, determination, and breaking barriers against all odds.
Thank you, Dad. What is the film about?
Well, I think this is more than just a biopic. I think that's maybe where you're being short-sighted, Tom. The film is really about persevering, overcoming obstacles that you never thought that you could overcome, and not being discouraged. He stated that, why do you want this so bad? His wife asked him, and he said, because they told me I couldn't have it. So it's about using your gut instincts, about carrying on when you don't want to carry on anymore, when it doesn't feel right anymore, when it's too big for you to surmount, and keeping going anyway, regardless of how much it takes or what sacrifices you have to make. Being a better person and winning others over because you just quietly do the right thing. Not about necessarily showing off. And I think it's about being human and having that quiet strength to just keep moving despite everything else.
I will say, for fairness to me, that I go into every movie we do, and I haven't seen this movie in 25 years, with an open mind. But I can't watch it in any different lens than I do every other movie we watch for the show. It's just been part of who I am at this point, that's how I watch almost every movie, whether for entertainment value or whether we're covering it on the show. I just have this lens anymore to be able to see stuff. Now, that being said, I have no issue with the perseverance angle of this movie. To me, if I were to describe it, and forgive me for delving into a little bit of politics, or at least talking about a political figure here for a moment. But if you know the story of our now former President Biden, he is probably one of the few people that ever rose to a significant position that has endured quite as much tragedy in his life that he has. And one of the things that he said, good nor bad, and however you feel about him, fine. I have my own issues and whatever with everything that has gone on. But one of the things that he said in his campaign before he won the presidency in 2020 that resonated with me was how he seemingly found purpose in his life. Every time he had a tragedy, he responded by finding new purpose, whether it was losing his sons, whether it was losing his wife, whether it was any number of family tragedies. He responded by finding purpose. So I guess to me, the message of the movie overall is that this guy found his own purpose and never allowed anything to get in the way of that purpose. Sometimes to not only his own detriment, but everybody around him. But he pursued a goal in a way that it felt somewhat fanatical. And we respect him for that, good or bad.
It's twofold also, which is it's also the story of a father and a son, which is him taking on the role of achieving things his dad could only dream of as a sharecropper in the South. And the other being the racism he had to endure yet in the United States Navy in the early 50s.
That's the part of this that I think I have some of the most issue with. I mean, I have some technical nits to pick with this movie, but I think a lot of the quote unquote racism in this is way over dramatized. Like, yes, there's racism, like there's out and out, and I'm sure the guy was called names, but like, how much of the story of this do you really believe that he was subjected to really be putting obstacles in his way? 9.5 hours in a very cold, like, you're not doing that without getting hypothermia. Like, how real was that? Because there are elements of this story that are quite obviously based on a true story and not actually a true story.
Okay. But yet we covered the movie A Few Good Men, right?
Sure.
And you see all the hazing there. You don't think that they were going to be doing that with black people? You've got to be kidding. And at the time period, it was still in the 50s. We hadn't even had the whole racial revolution at that point where things even became more equal. So this was at a time when there was still some segregation, still some departure from what we've got now.
Do I believe that his task in achieving Master Diver was made more difficult by the systematic racism of the US military at that time that had just been integrated? Absolutely. Do I think he was subjected to gross levels of insults and name calling and maybe potential hazing? Yes, I absolutely think that. Do I think that he was excluded to the point where he and only one other guy, and not a white guy from Wisconsin, but a Brazilian dark-skinned man, were the only two in their barrack? Yes. Do I think he was allowed to go into a whites-only U.S. Navy bar? No. But there are certain other systematic challenges that I query the accuracy of here. That it at times feels to me a little over-dramatized for the point of being an entertaining movie. And I get some of that, but by the same token, like, you really shouldn't have to over dramatize racism to make it almost caricature like.
I don't think that happened at all. And I think you're a little short sighted because you've lived in an era where there hasn't been a whole lot of issue.
What
Not
are
like,
you talking about?
well, not
Do you
like,
not look outside? How about
okay,
the 17 text messages a day you send me of ice raids and all sorts of other things going on in this country?
well, that's not what I'm talking about.
You
I'm
just said I
talking
don't
more,
see it in my own life, and I have a privilege of not seeing it in
okay,
my everyday right now. It's all over.
yes, but I was born just after that. Your dad was born during the middle of all of that stuff with Martin Luther King. And we were just, one of the questions from trivia last night was about Malcolm X. But I think it was so much more, there's so much more hatred. And for a long time, I think it got less. I think oh, I don't want to go into a political text for all of this, but I do think that there are certain factions now that are fostering additional hate against anybody who isn't white. But I don't know. I just think that you're wrong, Tom. I think there was probably way more of that than what anybody is willing to talk about.
I think it manifests itself in different ways. in no way am I discounting that the guy endured racism. That's going to be quite apparent. However, do I think it was manifested in the ways that are easily depicted on screen? No. I think his challenges were much more systematic and institutional than they were necessarily people interacting with him poorly, or a guy mandating that he would never pass the diver's school as long as he was there. I don't know. I question some of that.
They didn't want them there. It wasn't there, but he wasn't
He
there by
wasn't the
choice of
only one there.
It doesn't
You're
matter. He
speculating.
wasn't wanted.
You're speculating. Okay. I do know that in doing some very quick research, he did get lots of threatening notes, we're going to drown you today, etc. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I'd have to do some more research to know specifically. Was he subject to racism? I think that's clearly the case. Was he told he wasn't going to pass? I think that probably was the case, because I'm sure that was something that they didn't want to allow the first necessarily. I mean, we're talking about 7 years after Jackie Robinson and the amount of racism that was going on in baseball all across the country, threats, etc. 7 years is not that long a time, especially when you're talking about the military, which had a stronger tradition among the Southern population than the Northern. And so I think that became very much of a problem.
Okay. Well, we'll have more racism talk here coming up. But before we get to that, did you know? While the film portrays a Wisconsin recruit as the only white recruit, also, did he have to have a stutter? Did he have to have it, especially as a character that's made up? It makes no sense to me. Anyway, as the only white recruit to remain in Carl Brashear's bunk, the actual individual was a Brazilian diver named Alberto José do Nascimento, who was also dark-skinned. Alberto also helped Brashear save a fellow recruit who was trapped underwater during a training exercise. We can't have more than a couple of black people in the movie? Okay. Did you know? It is mentioned several times that Billy Sunday swam out of the St. Lo when she sunk. The USS St. Lo was an escort carrier and the first major U.S. Navy ship to be sunk by a kamikaze. It happened during the battle off Samar, part of the larger Battle of Leyte Gulf? Leyte, okay. The St. Lo and several other escort carriers, along with a handful of destroyers and destroyer escorts, held off a larger and more powerful Japanese task force, whose mission was to shell the Allied invasion force preparing to retake the Philippines. I think that's probably only interesting to Dad.
Okay.
As I yawn.
Did you know? Master Chief Billy Sunday, Robert De Niro, was based on two people in Carl's life. And finally, Master Chief Sunday has a tattoo of two anchors crossed on the webbing of his hand between his thumb and index finger. This is a traditional tattoo of a boatswain mate in the sea services. So, I don't have much else. The Did You Know section was really bare on this film because, let's be honest, I don't think many people are revisiting this 25 years later. But we'll have the only podcast episode on it. So that takes us to our first break, and we'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 295th episode, we welcome back Christine Duncan and Adam Freed of Movie Archer to discuss The American President from 1995, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Directed by Rob Reiner, written by Aaron Sorkin, cinematography by John Seal, music by Mark Scheiman, editing by Robert Layton, starring Michael Douglas, Annette Bening, Martin Sheen, David Paymer, Samantha Mathis, and Michael J. Fox. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Now, normally we would check in with our guest here, but Mom, I don't think you have anything to promote. You haven't written a new book or created a new recipe that you'd like to hawk out to the world or have been guesting on other podcasts. Would you like to show your new swag?
Yeah, I have a new shirt that's from the podcast.
So is that what you've decided is for guests who have been on 20 times now? We have the polos for 15, but now 20 is, or are we doing something else?
Well, I don't know. This is what I wanted. So since I was purchasing, it's what I bought.
Will somebody make a goddamn decision, please? At this point, I'm starting to think that for 20 episodes, we just give you a automatic movie of your choice. Whatever you want to do that we let you do. You come on our airwave, you get to pick it. We'll take a break out of whatever we're doing and you get your own thing.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Either that or I send you a 6-pack of Spotted Cow, if I can.
Why would you send me a spotted cow? Oh, you mean for the other guests?
The other people that aren't living near me or are interacting with me on a daily basis.
I see.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Right with the uptake there, honey.
Well, anyway.
Okay, moving on. It's now time for everybody's favorite, the CLP Rankings. Last week, we left you off at number 41. 50 through 41 were revealed. Just a quick recap of that. Number 50 was Fargo, a movie my mother loves. 49 was Die Hard, the Christmas classic. 48, Oppenheimer. 47, Double Indemnity. 46, Mulholland Drive. 45, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. 44, Gone with the Wind, a episode that you were on, Mom. We also had a tie at 42 for Some Like It Hot and Seven Samurai, and 41 was The Best Years of Our Lives. So this week we reveal to you numbers 40 through 31. We no longer have to deal with any of those pesky ties, so everything will be a number unto itself. So at number 40 here, we have Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, our first Stanley Kubrick mention on the list. Mom, have you seen Dr. Strangelove?
I have not.
You have.
Yes.
When we watched it for the show, you watched it with us.
Yeah, I must have fallen asleep.
Okay. 39, we have Network from 1976. We've covered it on the show. It is our first Sidney Lumet movie on the list. Certainly not his last. Excuse me, it's our second Sidney Lumet movie after Dog Day Afternoon. But Mom, have you seen Network?
I don't think so.
Okay. Dad, I know you have. Obviously, we've covered it for the show. Number 38, we have one of Dad's favorite watches for our most recent episode of the Revisionist Almanac from 1982. We have Ridley Scott and his first mention on the list so far, Blade Runner from 1982.
I don't know. I don't remember.
No, you would remember seeing Blade Runner, Mom.
I did not see
one
it.
of those.
Okay, good.
It's one of those you'd be questioning, why the hell am I watching this? But all right. Number 37, we have one of my 3 favorite films of all time, and the only one of these 3 to make the final 122, and that would be number 37, The Dark Knight from 2008. This is our last Christopher Nolan movie. Then 36, we have the Best Picture winner of 2007. We have our last Coen Brothers movie on the list with No Country for Old Men. 35 is another film that we have covered on the show to date twice. We have Spike Lee's only film on the list, and that would be Do the Right Thing from 1989. Now, Mom, have you seen The Dark Knight, No Country for Old Men, or Do the Right Thing?
Yeah, I've seen Dark Knight.
Okay. Well, at least you saw the best out of those 3.
I think, Dana, did I start watching No Country for Old Men with you and then I just couldn't finish it? I thought it was really boring.
That's likely. You didn't appreciate him killing people with the nail gun.
Wasn't a nail gun. It was like an air pressure Cube thing that you'd kill cattle with.
Yeah, it's a nail gun.
It's not a nail gun, but whatever. Anyway, moving on. Number 34 is a film we'll be covering next summer. This is one that I've been waiting to show my dad because as bad as we treated the original film in this franchise, I always thought the sequel is the one that you really come back for, and you watch the original so you can come back for the sequel. We have James Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It is his second and last film of the CLP. I would beg to guess that neither of you have seen this movie.
I did see it. It's been a long time.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I saw it on HBO after it first came up. I watched it, so yes.
I thought in previous discussions you had never seen it, but okay.
No, I'm not sure I've seen the entirety of it, but I think I've seen at least 90% of it.
Number 33, we have the Best Picture winner of 1962. This is a film that will be covered in our 2027 season. I think that's season 8 at this point. Every film that is on the CLP list that corresponds with an anniversary that particular year is subject to being on our schedule so that we can make sure that we cover everything from the CLP list. But we have Lawrence of Arabia. Dad, I know that you've watched this most recently with me. Mom, have you seen Lawrence?
Don't think I've watched the whole movie from start to finish, but I have watched bits and pieces. I think when you and Dad were watching it, I was in the room and I did watch parts of it.
I think there are a lot of people that are going to be yelling into their phone, computer, whatever right now that this wasn't included higher up the list, but you know, them's the breaks. I believe this was on my list. I don't know if it was on everybody's list because obviously it didn't get into the top 10 or 20 where I think most people would expect this to be, but it's at 33. That's the way it goes. Number 32. This is a movie I know Mom has seen. She has called it one of her favorites of all time. We have another Alfred Hitchcock classic from 1954, Rear Window. Then, finally, for number 31 and our final film of the evening, this is a film we'll be covering in just a few weeks in early December, but we have Michael Mann's only inclusion on the list. We have 1995's Heat. I assume neither of you have seen this movie.
No.
So just a quick recap again. Number 40, Dr. Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. 39, Network. 38, Blade Runner. 37, The Dark Knight. 36, No Country for Old Men. 35, Do the Right Thing. 34, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. 33, Lawrence of Arabia. 32, Rear Window. And 31, Heat. Dad, initial reactions.
There are a few of those films that I thought should have been higher, but it is what it is. So that's why we do a poll and try to get as many opinions as possible. Some people have things higher or lower than others, and it's supposed to average out.
Mom, other than putting new things on your watch list, any initial reactions from you?
No, because I didn't hear where some of the other films ranked, but so no, I don't really have any.
So I think this is now the second of my top 10 that did not make the official top 10. I think I had the most single top 10 movies on my list that made the top 10 of the overall CLP list at 6. So there's some crossover there, especially if you know what my personal list is. And we still haven't decided if we're doing an episode where we're revealing our own top 50 list, but we'll get to that down the road yet here. But Network was my number 3. So I'm a little bit sad that it's this low, but I'm definitely glad that it's in the top 40. Given the nature of news and political news and such in the modern era, I know it was done for satire at the time. It plays more like a horror film now, but it is worthy of its inclusion here. Obviously, I'm a little bit surprised that The Dark Knight ended up being Christopher Nolan's top film, but I think it's so broadly popular and people recognizing, even though it is our only inclusion in the superhero genre, that it's still a good film. It rises above the dismissiveness of the genre to be included here. Do I think it's Christopher Nolan's best film? No. Do I think it's his most popular and broadly appealing? Quite possibly. But it ended up being his top ranked one. I think it cut across most people's lists.
I had Oppenheimer and Dunkirk both above it.
I have no issue ranking both of them as better films, and I think I included The Dark Knight just over Dunkirk, and that might have been one of my lone inclusions where I went with more of a favorite than I did necessarily best, but I think it was near the bottom of my own list. Obviously, I have a personal affection for that film. If you've heard me talk about my favorite films and why, you know exactly what I mean here, but certainly all of the films that are on the list tonight, I have no real disagreement with their inclusion, either from people that really love them and think very fondly of them. I'm a little bit mixed on No Country for Old Men. I'm glad we're going to be covering it in a couple of years, but that's one that I'd like to do. I'm maybe not as high on Lawrence of Arabia as some other people, but it's another one that, given how frequent it is in the overall greatest movies of all time lists that have been generated, I can't quibble with the fact that it's here at 33, especially next to another one that's in our top 10 list of the Gmote overall list that we've covered in Rear Window. I guess the ones that are a little bit higher for me that are maybe a little bit stranger and people could kind of quibble with it. The Dark Knight being as high as it is, of course. I think Blade Runner is much more of a quiet classic and maybe among a certain subsection of film fans. So to see it this high on the list is a little bit puzzling. And Heat. Heat is another one where I think it's broadly appealing and popular, but it's kind of an action film. And so by that standpoint, to have it placed above Rear Window and Lawrence of Arabia is maybe a bit of a head scratcher, but I know it has its fans out there. All right, some additional notes on the list for tonight. We had our 5th and 6th science fiction films in Blade Runner and Terminator 2 tonight. They join Interstellar, E.T., Eternal Sunshine, and Wall-E. We still have 7 more sci-fi films to go. This was our 5th Western on the list, with No Country for Old Men joining The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Unforgiven, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and The Searchers. We have 1 more Western to go. 2 more Best Picture winners added to the list this week, with Lawrence of Arabia from 1962 and No Country for Old Men from 2007. So far, we have 21 winners on the announced full list, and 1 from each decade. So far, the most Best Picture winners from a single decade is the 1960s, which has 4 now, with Lawrence of Arabia, The Sound of Music, The Apartment, and West Side Story. The next highest decade, you want to venture a guess as to who has 3, or which decade has 3 Best Picture winners on the list?
1970s.
No.
90s.
Nope. Both good guesses. But the 90s only has 1 Best Picture winner so far. It's the 1930s. We had All Quiet on the Western Front, It Happened One Night, and Gone with the Wind. A few other things, as I mentioned, that is our last Christopher Nolan film on the list. He will not be coming up again. We got our first Stanley Kubrick film, but is certainly not his last. Our only Michael Mann film was Heat. Our first Ridley Scott film, but also not his last. This is our second Alfred Hitchcock film after Rebecca, which placed at number 104. This is our first and only Spike Lee film. Our second and last James Cameron film. Our second and last Coen Brothers film. Our second Sidney Lumet film, but also not our last for him. I think most people can identify what other film is going to be higher up the list. Our second and last David Lean film. So Lawrence of Arabia is his top-rated film at number 33. That joins The Bridge on the River Kwai, which I believe was somewhere in the 100s. Currently, our director breakdown so far is 5 films included for Akira Kurosawa, more than any other single director on the list. We have 4 for Christopher Nolan, and that will finish him out. We have 3 for Quentin Tarantino, 3 for David Fincher, 2 for William Wyler, Robert Wise, John Huston, Paul Thomas Anderson, Peter Jackson, Damien Chazelle, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, Alfred Hitchcock, the Coen Brothers, Sidney Lumet, and David Lean. Current breakdown for each decade of the list so far: 4 films from the 1920s, 5 films from the 1930s, 7 from the 1940s, 8 from the 1950s, 9 from the 1960s, 11 from the 70s, 10 from the 80s, 16 films, and the highest number in any decade for the 1990s, 12 from the 2000s, 9 from the 2010s, and only one on the list overall for the 2020s, and that was Oppenheimer last week. So, any other notes that you guys want to talk about or inclusions here before we move on?
I'm good.
So, with that being said, let's jump back into our movie of the evening where we left off at, biopic racism. Okay. Best performance was next up on the list. Dad, who do you have down?
Robert De Niro. Can't say much more than that. I mean, De Niro, anything he's in, he tends to be pretty damn good. So he makes anything around him better.
Okay. Mom.
Cuba Gooding Jr. I think he set the definition, the tone of the film, made things believable, and he made you feel with him, think with him, observe with him, and I thought he did a fantastic job.
Well, I think you're both going to be generally upset with me while we go through these categories. I have Anjanae Ellis-Taylor. Frankly, I thought she was by far the best actor in this entire movie. I thought she was one of the few that didn't grossly overact her part. I thought she was actually believable compared to both of the leads in this movie. And so she gets my easy best performance in this film. Secondary performance, this is where I will give Cuba Gooding Jr. because, at least compared to Robert De Niro, who so grossly overacted in this movie and felt like he was getting a paycheck. And again, what is with the accent work? He's so bad with the accent. He goes in and out of it constantly during this movie. At least Cuba Gooding Jr. kind of had a feel for the character. You could get a sense of why you wanted to root for him. And overall, if that character doesn't feel that quiet strength that Mom mentions, I don't think the movie works at all for anybody. So, somewhat by default, I'm giving it to him.
Well, I gave it to Robert De Niro too because I think he captures the military aspects and the feelings of the time, and I think he was in a tough spot, and I think as a character, and I think that he played it well. He had the conflicted feelings. You could feel that with him. I think he did a really nice job.
I have Cuba Gooding Jr. I thought his portrayal of being stern, driven, and such came across heartfelt and genuine.
Moving on, we have most charismatic. Anyone want to go here first?
I will. I picked Charlize Theron. I think it takes a lot to play somebody who's drunk all the time. She would sweep into the film and charm you regardless of her sobriety issues. I think she understood her husband character. I think that some of those military marriages too at that time were difficult. And I think that she had charm and she understood her role, and I just thought she was very charismatic in the film.
Well, I know you're going to criticize me for this one, but I'm going to give it to George Tillman Jr., Wisconsin's own George Tillman Jr., the director. Grew up in Milwaukee and became a director. He did Soul Food. He also directed Barbershop, and he directed a film, I took Mom to see The Longest Ride with Alan Alda and Scott Eastwood, based on Nicholas Sparks' film or book. I mean, this was only like his second major film, and I think he could have done a lot worse of a job than this. So I'm just going to give him kudos for putting in a solid effort and really helping to develop the script.
What effect did he have on the script?
He kind of worked on it and did a lot of the rewrites and got it, was able to get it actually produced and done.
I don't know how that's charismatic, but all right.
Dad will take on some ones that barely fit the category often to award more people. I don't know.
Well, if that were the case, then I probably would have picked the soundtrack.
You could have. We've done that
Yes.
before. I've picked an individual song. I've picked soundtracks. I've picked composers. You know. But anyway, I digress. No, I'm not going to criticize you for having the director here. I have not criticized anyone for their personal opinion on the film. I disagree. I think this is a fairly uninterestingly directed film. I don't think he over directs it, but there's nothing special about it to me. But my disagreement is just with the pick. It doesn't have anything to do with you personally. That's the part that Mom hasn't quite grasped is that my opinions are not personal. It's just my opinion. But anyway, regardless of that, I have Anjanae Ellis-Taylor here again because I thought she was the only one who I felt actually did a really above average acting job in the movie. And frankly, I'm a little bit surprised, although forgive me that I'm not as familiar with her filmography, but probably could be getting better roles. I mean, she's now somewhat of a known name, but it's taken quite a bit of time. I mean, this is 25 years ago, and I think I've only really gotten to know her as a named person that like I recognize the name in the last like 5 to 10 years. So let's move to best scene. I have 5 nominees here. I have Meeting Joe, which is the first time that he's in the library and sees his future wife. Then I have the bar bet, where they both get in the diving helmets and are submerged. Then I have the final diver test, which we kind of already alluded to with the long time underwater. I have Finding the Warhead, where he has to dodge the submarine. And then I have the final suit walk in the courtroom. Now, I understand that there are a lot of various scenes in this movie, and I probably missed a few. So, Mom, help me out. What did I miss that you felt I should have included?
You missed out when he's leaving on the bus for the military to begin with, and his dad gives him his last pieces of advice and the radio. And then you also missed the scene where, at the time, it was Chief Billy Sunday defied his superiors' direct orders and threats and dived back in after to save a comrade who was drowning and then gets demoted. The whole scene where Brashear is watching this going on that makes him decide he wants to be a diver.
Dad, anything to add?
I do not.
And there was one more, and I think that's one of my favorite scenes, or my most indelible moments too, and that's where he and Joe are having a little bit of an argument, and she drives off, and then he hollers after her, "Will you marry me?" And then she stops the car and runs back down toward him.
So, adding those 3 in here, we have Father's Advice, Sunday's Last Dive, Meeting Joe, Bar Bet, Carl's Proposal, Final Diver Test, Finding the Warhead, and Final Suit Walk. Out of these, what is the best scene?
I have the final diver test. It's where he has to really endure the most hostile of situations and overcome them.
I have that as well. I think it is the most emotionally cathartic because even though the final suit walk is there, it feels kind of anticlimactic compared to this moment where he finally overcomes and becomes the diver. Frankly, the last 20 minutes or more, especially because you don't actually see him become the master diver, it's just that he gets reinstated. I could have done without. The movie could have played this up a little bit more or extended this, what is it? It's not boot camp, but you understand what I mean, sequence in how they have in other movies, because this is usually some of the hardest that anybody has to go through, certain challenges, particularly with superiors. By the time he gets to the Finding the Warhead scene, it feels like he's commanding respect from either his peers or his commanding officer by that point, and they clearly care about him. So there's like a switch that's been turned somewhat. At least here, this is where you get that emotional crux of he's going through and he's enduring all of the extra challenges that everyone's giving him and rising above.
Well, on top of which, that scene ends with De Niro passing him and him himself getting demoted because he didn't follow orders.
He wasn't demoted for that.
Yeah, the Pappy removed him from his duty.
But that's not demoted. He was demoted for being a drunk who got into fights.
Well, yes, I know that too, but he was removed from his capacity then, if you want.
Okay. So you're also going with that, or are you going with a
Yes.
different scene?
No.
Okay, so we're 3 for 3 on the final diver test. Favorite scene for me is the bar bet. Again, I think this is a moment in the film that kind of speaks for itself, and you really could have played it more quietly, but it has a nice rising action to it. You've got a whole lot of different things going on. You have the two primary leads kind of going mano a mano. I think for me, that scene works really well. And I think I would have made some other creative choices, but you don't really need to do a whole lot when you have two good actors or seemingly good actors, your leads, the people you pay the most, to be charismatic and to face off against each other. It's what you want in the middle of your film.
I agree. I think that brought a lot of emotion. You know, his wife walked in to see what was going on there, or girlfriend at the time, and saw that they were head to head and was concerned about them. So even she got inside this bar, and yeah, I just think there was a lot of hype around there. And the music was good during that scene too.
I'll make it a 3-pack on that one. And my point is that's the point where Gooding was on equal footing with De Niro in the film. Up until then, he was second to him. Now that they were mano a mano, and actually he even bettered him a bit as a result that changed the dynamics of the film from that point forward.
And their relationship too, I think.
Well, he proved he could belong. I think that's the significance of it, that in a movie where you're judging them and making an entire class of people to be inferior, this is the example where not only can you be equal but possibly superior to him and prove that you belong, which is the whole point. But most indelible moment for me, and frankly the one that I remembered 25 years later about this movie, is the final suit walk.
I still think it's his dad leaving him at the bus. I think it's a turning point. It's where he made up his mind that he wasn't going to take any guff from anybody. He was going to do it because that's what his dad was expecting, and he wanted to show up for his dad.
I had final suit walk. Surprise, surprise. It's a scene where the guy overcomes and basically tells the commanders or the people in charge to shove it up their ass. I don't know why that always rings true to me, but
What did you pick?
the final suit walk, where he was telling the brass, or specifically the officer who's trying to remove him, basically to shove it up your ass.
So that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 258 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Tony Adams, 84, Welsh actor. Crossroads, Doctor Who, General Hospital. June Lockhart, 100, American actress. Lost in Space, Lassie, Petticoat Junction.
And so we remembered these here fondly with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. All right, let's move to best funniest lines. I'll take Billy Sunday, The Navy diver is not a fighting man, he is a salvage expert. If it is lost underwater, he finds it. If it's sunk, he brings it up. If it's in the way, he moves it. If he's lucky, he will die young, 200 feet beneath the waves, for that is the closest he'll ever get to being a hero.
Billy Sunday. A chief petty officer shall not drink. However, if he should drink, he shall not get drunk. If he should get drunk, he shall not stagger. And if he should stagger, he shall not fall. And if he should fall, he will fall in such a manner as to cover up his rank, so that passers-by will think he is an officer.
Gentlemen, this is a weekend liberty. Remember, one-night stands may be over in the morning, but syphilis lasts a lifetime.
Billy Sunday. My name is Master Chief Billy Sunday. There was a preacher by the same name who cleaned up Chicago of all the whore and spicks, drunk wops, and motherfucking ends that was making that place unfit for decent white folks to live. The only difference between me and that old preacher is that he worked for God and I am God.
Billy Sunday, picking up a picture of Carl's late father. What the hell did he ever say to make you try so hard? Carl, be the best. Billy, well, you are.
Before boarding the bus, Carl's father, Mac, tells him, "You get in there and fight, Carl. Don't take promises. Bust their rules if you have to, and when it gets hard, and it will, don't quit on me. Ever."
Billy Sunday. God damn it, Cookie, move your ass. I want my 12.
Billy Sunday, you know what the Chinese say, Cookie. Beware what you wish for.
Brashear, you're the same hateful little man you started out as. Without diving, you're nothing but a lost, broke-down son of a bitch who used to be something.
Joe. Why do you want this so bad? Carl. Because they said I couldn't have it.
I'm out.
Carl, forgive me, sir, but to me the Navy isn't a business. It's an organization of people who represent the finest aspects of our nation. We have many traditions. In my career, I've encountered most of them. Some are good, some not so good. I would, however, not be here today if it were not for our greatest tradition of all, Captain Hanks. And which one is that, Chief Brashear? Carl, honor, sir.
My last one, Mr. Pappy. 2 tablespoons of machine oil can contaminate an entire ship's fresh water supply.
Joe, don't you see? I'm not like you. The things I want are smaller. If I just work hard and keep my head down, Carl, then your whole life will pass you by.
Do you have any others?
No.
All right, then let's move to the Stanley rubric here. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy as shared between 2 equal yet important groups, the industry and the general audience, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. This is approximately 5 years after the film came out to today. So 2005 to today, what is the industry as shared between those groups? Dad, would you like to go first or second here?
I'll go first.
And before you do, please give us the results of the office poll.
Well, the office poll, about 1/3 of the office staff had seen, matter of fact, a little more than 1/3 had seen the film and couldn't tell me much about it other than it had Bob De Niro in it. And then a few people remembered Cuba Gooding Jr.'s name, but they had seen the film. Industry, 2.5 for the industry. I think that we did have George Tillman Jr. get an opportunity to do Barbershop, film with Ice Cube and I can't remember who else was in it. Not too long after this, and it got the green light because this film made money. So I'm giving it a 2.5 for that reason. For the public, because after 25 years, people are still remembering the film. They remember seeing it. I don't understand necessarily why certain movies strike a resonance and why people remember them, but they do. And so I'm at a 4. So I'm at a 6.5 overall.
I have nothing necessarily to disagree with your 2.5. However, I will add a couple of additional notes. I don't think necessarily that the director of the Barbershop franchise, because there were multiple barbershop films. And I don't think it was Ice Cube. I think it was Cedric the Entertainer who was the primary character in Barbershop. But I've never seen any of them, so I don't know. I don't know if that necessarily resonates with the communities we're hanging out with. I could be wrong, but I don't know. That being said, the two people that came out of here, I think with maybe not being neutral, or they weren't well known, but could have gotten some recognition or some notoriety for being in a film that was marginally successful, are Anjanae Ellis-Taylor and Charlize Theron. So among that, I mean, Theron didn't have her breakout until a couple of years later when she won Best Actress for Monster. But both of them are at least somewhat household names today. And you have to say in these early portion of their career, this could have aided it. I don't know if it's neither of their breakouts, but it certainly doesn't detract from their overall oeuvre. But Cuba Gooding Jr. and Robert De Niro were known quantities. It didn't really support them all that much. Michael Rappaport can go jump in a lake as far as I'm concerned at this point in time. So other than that, I don't have a huge amount to say. On the public side or the general audience side, I'm a little bit surprised that our Office cohort remembers this as well as they do, but I think that that's somewhat anecdotal, so I only give it some small weight. I really don't think that most people, and since you mentioned it, even among the people who say they had seen it, they could not describe to you anything about the film. To me, that does not signify that it is like high in people's memory, and frankly, if you don't bring it up to them, I don't think many people would think about or talk about this film at all. So with that being said, I'm going to give that a soft 2. And I'm going to go with a 4.5.
Wow, I totally disagree with the latter. Not only did over a third of the people in the office have seen this movie. I told you I had talked to outside people and they all knew the film. They knew who was in it. They knew what the premise of the film was. And I said, well, it's one of my favorite films. And Lynn said, where did you find it? I should probably go watch it again because I really like it. So I I disagree. As far as the 2.5, yeah, I agree with that. That's what I put down. But I really think that the rest of it should be a 4. So I have like a 6.5.
So that is a great 5.83 average between the three of us.
By the way, did you give him his oeuvre or did I?
I'll let you take that on.
Okay.
Just for my own satisfaction here, can either of you define what the term oeuvre means?
I've never heard it before, and it came out of your mouth, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
It's been a running joke for probably about 2 months now on the show, where it's a French word, and I've been teasing Dad on and off that I keep touching his oeuvre.
It's one of those college-educated words there, son.
No, it's French.
Yes, I know, but
You don't have to go to college to learn French.
Some people are pretty good at it.
So, do either of you have an opportunity or know
I
the
think I
definition
read
of
this
oeuvre?
on the apartment. I think you used the same word on the apartment, and Dad was giving you crap then. And of course, I didn't pay attention or try to do anything to look it up or use the word.
I just
Okay.
wish it would die. But go ahead. Enlighten us if you so choose.
Oh no, I'll let you look that up on your own if you
Well,
so
it's
choose.
not happening. So all right,
Okay.
move on.
It's not going to happen for me either. And the next week when you use it again, I'll go, oh yeah, I should have looked that up.
Okay. Just like I said, it was for my own satisfaction.
I see.
Let's move to impact and significance. This is a measure of the impact and significance in the initial 5 years that the film came out. So, roughly 2000 to 2005. What is the impact and significance as felt between the same two separate but equal groups, the industry and the general audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, since you went first last time, I will go first here. Overall, there wasn't much awards attention. It made a general profit, but it was the number 56 film of the year at the worldwide box office. Most everything seemed to gross a decent amount of money back in those days because people were going to theaters a lot more often. It did get the clout to fund the Barbershop series, but did it specifically lead to Anjanae Ellis-Taylor specifically getting roles? I can't say with any certainty. I also can't say that Charlize Theron got specific roles because she was included in this movie. Frankly, I don't find that her role was all that becoming for her to be able to get other opportunities. I'm going to go with a 2.5 and a 1.5 for a 4.
Industry, I have the same 2.5. And for the public, it did make a profit, double its budget. So I'm at a 3. So I'm at a 5.5.
And I can't argue with either of you. I have a 2 for the industry, and I have a 2 for the audience, so I have 4.
So that is a 4.67 average between the three of us. Now, here's where it's going to get testy. Novelty. This is a measure of something I said?
No, testy.
Okay, little boy. This is a measure of the originality of anything having to do with the movie, although you could say that it's usually about the subject material, but it could be about something else, and the general execution on anything having to do with the movie. 5 and 5 points apiece between those two categories for a total of 10. Mom, would you like to go first here, or would you rather one of us start and give you an idea?
Well, I can go first. I didn't break it out. In this particular category, the war and military movie wasn't new. The race relation movies weren't new. Good overcoming evil, so to speak, isn't new. So I just basically gave it a neutral score of 5.
For me, originality is a 2. There's just nothing unusual about it or original about it. It was a good story. Execution, I give it a little bit higher. It wasn't spectacular, but it was by a relatively young director, and he did an adequate job. He made a solid movie, nothing spectacular, nothing that you go, ugh, like his choices of this or that were poor. So I'm going to give it a 3.5 for execution. So that puts me at a 5.5.
Okay, getting to me. I find there to be next to nothing novel about this movie. I give it a 1. Just from an originality standpoint, this feels very familiar. There's nothing particularly special. Yeah, it's pretty. It falls in line with most biopics of the subgenre of military movies and of race relation movies. Now, execution. I have this at a 2. I think De Niro is grossly overacting the entire movie. I think his accent work is terrible in this. I find Charlize Theron to be terribly miscast in this movie. I also think she's grossly overacting. I don't understand Michael Rappaport or the choice to make him stutter. I really don't care for most of the people in this movie as far as an acting job. I think if you're ever going to talk about grossly over manipulative scores, this is it. I hated the score in this film. It is so overwrought and overplayed. You can't have a single line of delivery of dialogue in this movie without feeling the emotional weight of the score. The editing is fine. It's at best average. The cinematography is nothing special or to write home about. So I'm going to give this a 2 on execution because at least Anjanae Ellis-Taylor is decent in the film. Cuba's fine enough, and there's nothing objectionable about several other pieces in the movie. And frankly, I don't want to completely shit on everything that my mother likes about this movie. So I'm going to give this a 3.
Well, you've convinced me.
To go up?
No, I was trying to catch you. You've complained about me changing my score the last several weeks, so I thought I would try one more time. See if I can get you to overreact.
No, I just expected at this point.
Okay.
So that's a 4.5 average between the three of us. Let's move to classicness. This is a category that is basically whether or not something has aged well or not. Was it ahead of its time? Is it timeless? It, for the most part, lives in the gray area, and thus we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
I think that there is an element of classicness in the story itself, which is sharecropper to driven to overcoming in the Navy, overcoming personal injury or disability to become a master diver. So there's nothing, the language, but that's a reflection of or to display the level of racism that was going on at the time. We have at least one female lead that's fairly solid and has an impact on the story. I am up to a 7.5.
Mom, would you like to go, or would you prefer I
I
start?
can. So for me, I think the appeal is broad. There's nothing unappealing necessarily about this film. The topics that are covered still occur today. I don't think that there is anything that dates it as far as watchability is concerned. So I think it rates high on the classicness scale. I gave it a 9.
Okay. As for me on this one, I don't find anything particularly objectionable in here. I find it to be pretty down the line. The one exception to that I would have is that in order to not have yet another dark-skinned person in the movie, we had to cast one of the most white guys ever and cast him from, or say that his character is from one of the most white places ever, Wisconsin. And I say that full well knowing that's where I hail from. Michael Rappaport can go jump in a lake, as far as I'm concerned. So, with that exception, and I'll give it a point back up for timelessness, I'm going to give this a down the middle 6.
Would you care to explain your disdain for Michael Rappaport?
Is it just from this movie or?
No. It has nothing to necessarily do with his acting career. It's all off screen. I have objections to his values, what he espouses, his politics most explicitly, and just how he generally carries himself.
He's kind of an a-hole.
Yeah, and he goes out of his way to be an asshole to everybody.
He stirs up a lot of controversy. He gets involved in a lot of sports type stuff. He's a big person supporting lots of gambling and such, and that, and
he's an online troll and carries himself as such.
I see.
So
All
that's
right.
more of my objection than anything having to do with his acting. It's just that I don't care for him personally. So frankly, the movies that he does pop up in are so small of roles because he's not a very good actor either that I can be dismissive of him in addition to that. It's not like some other people who actually knew how to act and were important characters at some point.
Yeah, he has a tendency to burn a lot of bridges.
We did not give the average here. 7.5 average between the three of us for classicness. Let's move to rewatchability. This is our final category for us. I will give the objective score here, trying to take into account that I think for the most part, this is a fairly decently scoring audience score film. It had pretty decent Google and Rotten Tomato scores. The critics don't necessarily like it, but that's not the definition of rewatchability here. Again, there's nothing objectionable. I do find it drags in a few spots, but I'm not going to necessarily hold that against the movie. And it seems to be broadly appealing, so I'm going to give this a 6 here.
So I've watched this movie several times, 3, 4, I don't know. And I could watch it again today or tomorrow and probably find something in it that I missed. I think the themes don't get old in it. I think it's a good film. You could watch it with family or by yourself. I don't think it's too objectionable even for children. Yeah, there's a little bit of swearing in there, but not more than that they hear probably on the street every day. So I gave it an 8.
I guess in your world, Potty Mouth, that this is a low level of swearing.
Oh, is it my turn? Okay. I haven't seen the film in years. It's a good film. It's solid. I'd recommend people watch it if they like this type of thing. There's nothing bad. There's tons of films that are out there every year that are available to watch that are just solid films. They're not spectacular. They're not going to have people going gaga. But do I need to watch it again? No. Would I watch it again? Yeah, if somebody wants to. But I'm at a 5.
So that's a 6.33 average between the three of us. So for audience score on this one, we had an 83% for Google users and an 81% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.2. So to repeat the categories, we had a 5.83 for legacy, a 4.67 for impact and significance, a 4.5 for novelty, a 7.5 for classicness, a 6.33 for rewatchability, and an 8.2 for audience score, giving us a final total of 37.03, and currently placing it on our list at number 240 between Red River and Live and Let Die. That's 240 out of 258 films.
What can I say? It's still one of my favorite films.
That's fine. There are some good films that are near the bottom of the list. Blood Simple immediately comes to mind.
Yes.
Cool Hand Luke is a decent film that got near the bottom of the list. I still return to Ocean's 12, not very often, but it's there. And then there are the Shampoos and the Wedding Crashers and the Saws of the list.
Thanks for humoring me.
You're very welcome. As always, if you have any disagreements with our scores, not imagining that you would, but if you do, you can write us at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok, or Blue Sky at the handle @GMotePodcast, or find us on our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMotePodcast. Let's go to remaining questions for this one. I have 0.
Yeah, I don't have any either.
No, none.
It's a mostly true story. They give you the kind of ending. I don't really need to see what happens next. It's fine. And that often happens in this. So we do have one listener question from a Andrew Corns, because I solicited listener questions when we don't have many remaining questions ourselves. Now, when I looked at the cast list on this one and I saw a David Keith, I thought it was Keith David. Now, please look up, for my own edification, who Keith David is.
Well, David Keith was in Officer and a Gentleman.
I know. Have you looked up who Keith
What's
David
your
is?
point?
Who was in
Requiem for a Dream as Big Tim?
Dream, yes.
And I was excited because I like that actor. He has shown up in a lot of things. So the question from Mr. Corns is, because when I was disappointed that it was David Keith instead of Keith David, who's the better actor, David Keith or Keith David?
Okay.
That's the level of questions we got.
Yeah.
And for me, it's no contest. It's Keith David.
Yeah, David Keith, not much of an impact as an actor.
Nope.
I can't even think of anything he's done in the last 20 years.
That's fine. I was just generally disappointed because I enjoy Keith David as an actor. David Keith, I barely noticed that he's there.
He would be offended.
David Keith has been on Law and Order, Special Victims Unit, and
Ooh.
CIS, NSI Miami, and Hawaii 5-0.
So he must have either been the victim of the week or the criminal of the week.
Don't know.
There you go. Whatever. Okay, so I want to thank our guest for being back with us again. You will be back with us again next week for the American president, before you have some time off. You only have one sign up for next year. But that being said, anything you want to tell the audience that I haven't given you the opportunity since you don't have anything to plug?
No.
Okay. Dad, any remaining thoughts for the week?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing a few films this weekend. I'm coming down to Madison for a couple of days, and I think Begonia is going to be one of the films we're going to see. We'll see about the others.
As for me, I guess I'm trying to put together a month of December watch list when I'm on Christmas break from school. It's my longest break of the year. And other than some very basic editing, I really don't feel like I'm going to be doing a whole lot for about 3 weeks between semesters because I've earned it. So I'm going to try and decide or finalize what films I really feel like I need to get to, what shows I need to catch up on in between then and now. And we'll go from there. But I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of 2025 films I'm going to need to catch up on, and then some of these CLP classics that I have not yet gotten to.
I think we need to choose some for over the Christmas holiday and plan a couple of meals around our classic movies. So we'll have to think about that. Maybe each come up with one.
Well, we have done
as
that
we
in the
do
past.
every year. Yes, we have for a couple of
I
years.
don't think we
now.
did it last year.
Yes,
I think
we
that was
did.
already 2 years ago.
No, we did it
We
last
did
year.
it last year too. I think we only did one or two. The year prior, we had, I think, a couple more than that. But we have an elongated holiday this year, so we might be able
That's
to
fair.
get in one or two more.
All right. But otherwise, I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for listening. The president doesn't answer to you, Lewis. Oh, yes, he does, AJ. I'm a citizen. This is my president. And in this country, it is not only permissible to question our leaders, it's our responsibility. Next week, for our 295th episode, we welcome back Christine Duncan and Adam Freed of Movie Archer to discuss The American President from 1995, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Directed by Rob Reiner, written by Aaron Sorkin, cinematography by John Seal, music by Mark Scheiman, editing by Robert Layton, starring Michael Douglas, Annette Bening, Martin Sheen, David Paymer, Samantha Mathis, and Michael J. Fox. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or Blue Sky at the handle at GMotePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.